chatting to Harriet and Katy, who are good friends and founders of Mardi, who support refugees in Paris. Thank you to Team Mardi for coming along and joining me today. And thanks to everyone for coming along and watching us on Facebook Live. If you have any comments or questions, you can type them in as we're talking, and we'll have time to answer them hopefully at the end. Now, the team from Mardi, I'm totally in awe of these ladies. They work on the front line, providing frontline medical care to refugees in Paris. So could you all just take the time to briefly introduce yourselves and the organisation, please? Harriet, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm Harriet. I'm the co-founder of Mardi. We started officially back in January 2019. But for a couple of years before that, we've been doing unofficial trips to refugee camps across Europe as a group. And then myself and Elena Leiden, who is a nurse from the west of Ireland, who'd been in the jungle in Calais and has had lots of other experience working with refugees, decided to start something in Paris because there was basically, other than intermittent help from big NGOs like MSF and Médecins du Monde, nothing really there. And so we just pulled all of our refugee medics that we knew together and started Mardi. Yeah.
Impressive. Harriet? Is Harriet P frozen? Do we want to go to Kate? Should we go to Katy?
And I joined Harriet Cook a couple months.
Right. Harriet, were you all right to talk? Sorry, we've been having a few technical issues. We'll get through it.
So
Harriet P?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
I'm Harriet Payne. I joined Harriet Cook a couple of months after she started, and she needed more volunteers. We'd met before in Calais doing a similar sort of thing, and then just got more and more involved from then onwards. I go to France every few months, and then I tend to do a lot of ear coordination from here.
Thank you.
Katy?
Okay.
Hello, I'm Katy, part of the Mardi team. I joined, I think, about a year ago, but I'm not overly sure now. I've been involved with various refugee organisations for the past 4 or 5 years, just locally. And I did a humanitarian aid course and then ended up meeting Harriet and becoming involved with Mardi, and I tend to deal with translator inquiries and stuff like banking and fundraising.
Lovely. So what is the situation like in Paris at the minute? Like, what awaits refugees when they arrive there? What are the living conditions like? Harriet?
So Paris at the moment is, like it's been for the past 5 years, there's about 1,000 people in the camps at the moment. When we talk about camps, it's not even as much as we have in Greece, which is also, not acceptable, but we're talking tents, we're talking shacks, we're talking people sleeping on the bare ground with a blanket over them at best when they don't have a tent. They're not legal camps, there's no one taking responsibility for them, there's no one safeguarding them, there's not even a physical boundary to the camp. The numbers get a lot higher than this. This is probably not the quietest it's been, but we're normally looking at about 3,000 to 4,000. This time last year, we had about 3,500 people in camps in the north of Paris, plus thousands of other refugees who are put into hotels. And there's no real rhyme or reason as to who gets put in a hotel and who ends up on the street. It's just luck, good luck, bad luck. I mean, it's all bad luck, but bad luck and worse luck. The situation in Paris is different to that in Calais. It's definitely, there's a little bit of flux between the two. So Calais is mainly people who have family in the UK who are trying to get there, whereas Paris is people who are stuck. they're either stuck in Europe as a whole, they've had a rejection in Germany, they've had a rejection in Denmark, and now they're here, or people are on their in the process of claiming asylum and are onto their first or second rejection appeal, and it's taken years and years to get through that process, in which time they get very little from the state. People here are also stuck in Dublin a lot, so if you have fingerprints somewhere else, under the EU regulation, the Dublin regulation, France doesn't do anything for you for the first 18 months. It's supposed to be 6, but up to 18 months, where they ask the first country, say Croatia or Italy, to take you back, and that first country says no. So a lot of people are stuck in that situation as well. And then there's people that have just completely lost hope. They're on to their third or fourth country in Europe. No one will give them asylum. They can't go home because they left for very real reasons, like all refugees do, and they're just stuck. They're just here trying to figure out their next move, and there isn't really one. So it's a bit of a different situation to other refugee camps that I've worked in that sense. In theory, refugees have access to emergency healthcare, and there is a free clinic service that runs in most hospitals. Sounds great on the face of things, but actually does not work, is not practiced. People are turned away at the door from emergency departments, from clinics, from doctor's appointments booked by their social worker. Just yesterday, I had a guy on the phone who had a horrendous infection in his leg, and was hot, he had a fever, and he was shaking with his fever, what we call rigors, which means that he's got blood poisoning. Essentially, the infection isn't just in his leg anymore. He needs IV antibiotics. He needs to be in a hospital. He needs to be having nursing staff check on him every few hours to take his blood pressure and his heart rate. And we sent him to an emergency department with his friends, and he was turned away at the door. And I got a call from him last night saying that someone else had just called an ambulance for him, because he was sitting in his tent shaking with a fever, and the infection was spreading all the way up his leg. I mean, that isn't access to healthcare, is it? You can say all you like that it's free and anyone can use it. That isn't healthcare. So that's kind of where we came in to try and fill that gap, because one, it's unacceptable, and two, no one else is really doing anything about it. And that's kind of how we run there, and that's currently the situation in the camp. There's a lot of disease from poor sanitation as well. So rats they'll run over your feet in the camp. They're the bravest rats I've ever met, and there's hundreds of them. And we've got children living there. We've got 2 pregnant women from Somalia down in the family camp at the moment, with rats running in and out of their tents in the night, biting their toes, weeing on their food. Like, this is all, like, not just horrible, but it's a real health issue. That's a public health crisis. Like, that spreads disease. You get sporadic police evacuations as well, which is how we've ended up in the new camp. So every couple of months, the police will come and evacuate everyone, clear everything. In theory, put everyone up in housing, but it probably lasts a couple of days before everyone gets kicked out again. They'll make a big media show about how they've housed everyone and they've cleared the camp, as if it isn't their fault in the first place. And then there'll be radio silence about the fact that everyone is back out on the streets 5 days later with no tents, no resources, nothing. So that's the situation in Paris at the moment.
Yeah, that seems a common theme, that people get cleared around and then nobody really notices that they just found their way back there into exactly the same situation, don't they? So what services have your team provided over the years, and what differences have you made to the quality of lives of the refugees in Paris? Harriet P. Can you hear me, Harriet?
A load of volunteers from
Are you dipping in
Can
and
you hear
out?
me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
So we had a load of volunteers from all over the world, and they brought such a wide variety of experience with them. Like Harriet, they'll provide fire care and basic first aid that we can do out of rucksacks in the camps. Us actually going to the camps, as we felt, has made a massive difference. Time these people don't know of that they can go to the hospital and they will be treated, and whether they should. Organisations that are around and helping with distributions. There's some presence as well, a couple days a week. So just telling them where else they can go to get help as well is useful to them. We deal with lots of like very common illnesses and conditions like colds, flu, musculoskeletal pain, gastric problems that we can treat there and then, just with over-the-counter meds. We do a lot of wound care, and we can follow them up, come back the next day, come back in 2 days' time, change their dressings and that, which makes a massive difference. Are so poor, this is why they're having these illness and common skin infections and that are coming up. We can't do anything about these living conditions. We can just give some relief for these problems. We also, it's about the man who Vigors and that, we will triage to see if someone needs to go to hospital for further care. We are seeing a lot more problems such as tuberculosis, hepatitis, the complex that we do feel need treated in a hospital, and it's us rounding them up and ourselves advocating for them in the hospital, being that we can bring a translator as well, if they don't speak French, and just overcoming that language barrier, which is such a big problem as well.
Yeah,
before COVID, we saw on average we saw about 50 patients a day, which was about 5,000 people in 7 months. This is according to the numbers that were in the camps in Paris. So we saw a good deal of the population of some small relief to their conditions, or any wound care, or just their healthcare needs that so we definitely saw a good few people.
Yeah. So 2020, obviously it's been a hard year for everyone, but for refugees way more so. Do you want to talk us through the year so far, how lockdown has made a difference to the refugees in Paris and the volunteers?
Yeah, so obviously not ideal, a massive disappointment for us. We have a presence in the camps every day, and then being restricted, and obviously the refugees were disbanded from their camps. They were taken to sort of holding centres, and they didn't have the access to that they did when they were in the camps, the healthcare, us being there, anything else. So we took the time to us, like with volunteers in the UK, supporting any newly arrivees. We've managed to set it up in London, and we're just gradually expanding other larger cities, Birmingham.
Did you say Birmingham?
Family is a group of refugees that need clothing, phones, whatever. We're trying to get them those supplies. Yeah. So yeah, and also we have some amazing Paris-based volunteers as well, who have been working with some of the food distributions that have carried on throughout COVID. So they've gone along with the food distributions, setting up their little station and just treating some of the people that are turning up. And it has been busy, especially the last few weeks. Harriet Cook will be there. And we've also been making like hygiene packs, hand sanitizer, soap, getting volunteers making fabrics about, and then going around the camps distributing all these. Oh, look.
Thank you, Harriet.
And setting up hand washing stations in the camps as well. Just trying to help the refugees understand what's going on as well. The pandemic, and so isolated there.
Yeah.
If someone gets COVID in the camps, that's it. Yeah.
And have you come across any refugees with COVID in the camps at all? Or yeah. Scary situation. So in all your time with Maddie, I'm sure you've captured a lot of hearts over the years. I'm wondering if there's any stories in particular, any people who've really stuck with you that you'd like to share with us. Harriet, do you want to go first?
Yeah, can do. So I think endless stories, and every day you meet someone who sticks with you, at least one. But if I had to pick one, I guess it was last October. It was me and I'm a doctor, and then a midwife, Rachel Murray, who was out with us, and we were in one of the family camps. So again, tents on the street. They were in the middle of a roundabout, and we met a Kurdish family who had fled from Iraq because Dad worked in the police force and was involved in arresting some ISIS members and transporting them from one police building to another. And somehow some footage of that with his face in it was publicised in the media. So there's Dad, Mum, two little boys, 7 and 9 years old, and they come back from, I guess, shopping, or Dad was at work or something, and come back to the house one day and it's just rubble. It's just been bomb blasted because his face is now associated with anti-ISIS behaviour and actions. And they just had to up and leave. To make things worse, Mum was 3 months pregnant at the time, and so they pretty much walked from Iraq to France, stopped in Croatia for a little bit along the way, but didn't get any support there. Just a lot of police brutality and horrible mental health consequences from that, and then landed in a tent on the streets of Paris when Mum was about, I think she was about 7.5, 8 months pregnant at that point. Had zero antenatal care at all, no scans, no folic acid, none of the even like basic things, and had been pretty much walking and sleeping on the ground the whole pregnancy. We met her, like I say, about 7.5 months. She had all the normal things that you have with pregnancy as well, so really bad reflux, really bad indigestion. She had general like backache and hip pain. She had quite a bad dental infection as well, which at that stage is also a risk for triggering preterm labour, which would be absolutely catastrophic. The midwife that was with Rachel was also really concerned that this was her third baby, and that in her experience that was a risk for having quite a big bleed after the pregnancy, because your body has had a few babies by now and the womb doesn't kind of spring back as it did before, which is a bleeding risk. So basically, like, quite high risk and very symptomatic and very uncomfortable and in a lot of pain. So we did what we could symptom wise. We got her, the basic things: Gaviscon, paracetamol, keep packs, all of those things. Got her some dental treatment, got her to hospital for her scans, which took all of the best part of the day, just sitting and waiting, and having a kind of 5-person translation train. Mum speaks Kurdish, Dad speaks Kurdish and Arabic. Another translator spoke Arabic and French. I speak French and English. So trying to get that translation train to the midwife that we then saw in the hospital was interesting. And then the camp was evacuated. Just like that, like went one day and it just wasn't there anymore. We used to get a bit more of a heads up than that, but they were just gone one day. We still had their number, but they didn't really know where they were, so they couldn't really tell us. Patchy data and all that kind of thing. So we basically lost them, and then thankfully from all the scans we knew that the pregnancy was progressing normally. It was just one baby was the right way round, should be a fairly straightforward delivery, but equally needs to be in a hospital. And then we just kind of lost touch with them, like you do, and it's awful, but it happens so frequently that there's nothing you can do, and you kind of just have to move on to the next 50 patients you're going to see the next day. So they kind of went to the back of my mind, and then 2 months later I got a video through WhatsApp of mum in a hospital bed, a little healthy baby girl, and a cot next to her, about 2 hours old or something ridiculous. And now I get video calls from them all the time. They've actually been settled in Lille. They were Dublin because they've been had their fingerprints forced to be taken in Croatia, so they didn't have access to anything for 18 months. But now I get videos of them in the house with their 2 little boys and babies, kind of cruising around the furniture and causing chaos. And they're still awaiting a decision, but they have a roof over their head, they have beds, they have a dining table where they can have family meals, and they're relatively happy given the circumstances.
That's great. And not a lot, there's a lot of people who are not getting that in there, so
exactly,
it must warm you out when somebody actually does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Katy, do you have a story for us? Is there anyone you want to share? Katy? Is she frozen?
Came to reception, and I was just asked to support him by my local refugee organisation, and I went along to meet him. But when I got there, I found that he was really young, age as my oldest daughter. He was only 15 or 16, I think. So it was a completely inappropriate placement for him, and he was just so tired, and he just looked so old and so broken. So we took him shopping, and we sorted him out. But between Harriet and myself, we managed to get him into foster care, still fairly locally. And he's now with a really, really lovely foster family, and we've all met up and shared meals, and we keep in touch. And he's done his GCSEs now. He's at college, and he's just such a special and wonderful young man, and it's just a real privilege to have helped him even a tiny bit. So that's my memorable person.
Oh, thank you for sharing those. Absolutely devastating but heartwarming stories at the same time. So to the audience watching on Facebook Live, can you remember if you have any questions to put them into the chat, and we'll hopefully answer them at the end. But we have one last question. So obviously you're all volunteering out in Paris. What does it mean to you to have support from the UK and all around the world? And what can people who are not in France do to help Mardy and to help the refugees in Paris? Harriet P?
So there's a few things you can do. So I'll briefly say that you can volunteer with us if you are doctor, paramedic, physio, dentist, whatever. We usually say to get the most out of it and need the most help, at least spend 3 full days with us. We also need translators, French, Arabic, Pashto, Dari, Farsi is really helpful. A lot of the refugees do speak English because they're so educated, but we do need to help them and support them, and we need to overcome that language barrier. Translators are just so helpful to us. And then also just coordinators, if you feel like you would be helpful just to our organisation, organising our warehouse, organising our supplies. We have a lot of medication are in date, our safety and everything. So just keeping an eye on our stock levels and organising the refugees. Us British love a queue. do not. So just keeping them in line is and we're also trying all the number of refugees in the camps and who we're treating, what we're treating them for. What we need to be able to go to the government and say that what we're seeing, you need to. So someone writing that we take board and we're documenting what we're seeing and how much of it we're seeing. So someone to do and help with us with that. You can mail us at mardi.2019@gmail.com and me or Katy, and also follow us on our Facebook page and our Facebook group, which is Mardi Medical Aid for Refugees and Displaced People. And we're constantly posting up to what we're doing, what we need from people, and that is we need help in the UK, or we need supplies. We post-COVID just having to restock everything in our warehouse, and just keep an eye on us there.
Thank you. Do you want to just repeat what your website address is again for me, just so people can get that? Is it mardi.co.uk? mardi.org.uk, and that's Mardi with an I, isn't it?
Yeah, but we do most
Yeah.
of our
Email is the website, mardi.co.uk.
Lovely. So Katy,
Facebook is where we mainly use.
Katy, have you got something to tell us about how we can help from the UK?
Money. We need money. We need your money. All our money is spent on medical supplies, or to support our team leaders. We need sponsorship. Every penny goes towards something to help the refugees. We've been really lucky this year to be supported by some really great organisations like Donate for Refugees with grants. Also, Catch a Smile and the Michael and Betty Little Trust have all been very generous, which has been really helpful because we've not been able to have volunteers out most of this year because of COVID. And with our volunteers comes fundraising normally, so we've lost that this year. So the grants have been really helpful. So we have been able to set up hand washing stations, drinking water. We've done the COVID packs. We've done the big drive on scabies treatment as well. So that's where all the money has gone. But if anyone would like to donate, we do have PayPal and the details are on our website. So please donate.
Lovely, thank you very much. And Harriet?
Yeah, I guess the last thing that we need is just awareness. So the Paris refugee crisis is not something that's really known about. Even when you're talking about it, like the three of us who run an organisation, there people still correct you and say, like, oh yeah, Calais, and it's like, no, it's Paris. There's two big refugee crises in fact, actually more than that. You've got Lille, you've got Dunkirk, but it's a very different situation to those places that are right in the north of France, which are usually people who are UK bound. Paris is its own entity entirely, and then there's more issues down in the south of France. But we just need people talking about it, like awareness of Paris itself, awareness of the European refugee crisis as a whole, and awareness of refugees within our own communities, because every single one of us, no matter where we live in Europe, we will have neighbours who are refugees, we will have colleagues who are refugees, we will know someone, we will pass someone in the street who is a refugee, and you don't need to look that far, further afield to help with this situation. And I think the basis of the first step with that is educating yourself on it. So we post a lot of stuff about awareness and promoting awareness for the European refugee crisis on our social media. So whether that's the Mardi Facebook page, so Mardi Medical Aid for Refugees and Displaced People, whether it's our Instagram, mardi.front2019, whether it's our website, mardi.org.uk, or whether you want to email us and get involved personally and help do some awareness events or campaigns or something with us. We have two email addresses, so info@mardi.org.uk is probably the easiest one. But you then need to pass that information on. So educate yourself about it, and you don't need to be a world expert before you tell someone else. You can just learn one thing, one simple thing, and tell your friends, tell your family, tell your colleagues. And also, I think challenging the misconceptions and the assumptions that people say in general life. So if you're sitting at work and someone's saying something and you're like, I don't know a whole lot about refugees, but I know that that's wrong. It doesn't need to be an aggressive, confrontational conversation, but just say something. Just plant that little seed in the minds of the people that are in that conversation. Like, oh, they're all single men, they're just coming here to take money. Well, actually, refugees get about £37 a week to live in the UK. I don't think anyone's going to risk life and limb to get that. Something as simple as that just plants a seed in people's minds, and it might mean that someone then goes off to read a bit more about it, speaks to their friends, and we just keep passing on that knowledge and challenging all those what are often ignorant, not malicious, just ignorant misconceptions about refugees that are actually so dangerous. So yeah, follow us, learn things, talk to your friends.
Amber's actually put the your website address in the Facebook Live chat. Thank you very much for that. And it's now time to go over to the questions. So, one question we had was from a volunteer who had planned to come over, but now can't because obviously coming over to France, you then have to isolate for 2 weeks, time off work and things like that. And they were just wondering if there's any way they can help with any translation from here via WhatsApp or something, or if you're managing to get volunteers from other parts, like in France and things like that, where obviously they wouldn't have to quarantine after. How is that going?
That's Harriet saying probably the best place to answer.
Yeah. Can you hear us, Harriet? It might have to be you, if not Harriet.
So I think Harriet Payne covered a lot of that earlier when she was talking about kind of how COVID affects us. But the main things, I guess, would be we understand that people can't easily get to different countries right now, and that it maybe isn't the best thing for them either. Personally, if we have other vulnerabilities and health issues, for example. So one thing we can do is get involved with Mardi at Home. Which is the side project that Harriet was talking about, supporting refugees in the UK. We've set up some groups in the big cities, so London, Birmingham and Manchester. We now have groups, and we work quite closely with Care for Calais as well, who have a similar project going. I guess we have different strengths. We have a lot of medical staff and medical volunteers, and they have a big reach and a huge network of volunteers. So together we kind of bridge between the two of us and kind of refer refugees to each other. But if you want to get involved with that, you can email home@mardi.org.uk, which is our separate email to kind of vet people for those things. And I guess just a general following our page, because we always have opportunities coming up. Like, for example, we need a lot of fabric masks right now. We need reusable masks to get to the camp that people can wash. We can give someone a fabric mask and a bar of soap. They're set for the pandemic. They can just wash it and use it again, as opposed to these blue ones that last a day or two at best.
Because one of the questions was what happens when somebody has COVID. Are tests and masks and things like that quite available?
Tests not so much. Masks from voluntary organisations, so again not so much. But we're doing, between us and all of the food distro groups and the material aid distro groups, we're doing what we can to get masks out there. We have a big stock. It's just physically getting it to people and getting ones that are going to last. The only side note I would have to that is if you're making masks for us, I know it sounds ridiculous, but we've had quite a few pink masks donated and they're not going down well in the camp. So be a little bit sensitive about what fabric we're making them out of. Dark colours, blues and blacks, no patterns. We've had a few come through with boats on, which are beautiful, but maybe a little bit triggering for people who've come over from Libya. So just plain colours, blacks and blues, greens, keep it simple. That's a big thing that people can do. And as soon as travel restrictions lighten up, get yourselves out to Paris, come and see it. If you think you can't contribute something, you're wrong. It doesn't matter who you are, you definitely can. We'll find a way to use you. Do not worry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably.
Yeah, I think you've partially answered this one yourself anyway, because somebody's asking, apart from volunteering on the camp itself, are there other ways in which UK-based medical students can help Mardy? But would that be getting involved with Mardy at home again in the?
Yeah, I think so. Anyone certainly can get involved with Mardy at home, but it's really useful
Yeah.
for medical people. And when we say medical people, we don't necessarily mean that you're going to end up going treating someone for, you know, blood poisoning in a back street somewhere, but you might be the best person that can get that person registered with a GP. Because an issue that we have a lot is that GP surgeries ask for proof of address, which isn't actually legal. It's not actually what our policies for the NHS say. Everyone who is on English soil is entitled to a GP. You don't need to prove your address, and so it's about breaking down those barriers for someone who understands the system. And also the horrible fact that having an English accent and being articulate in English gets you a long way, which is shouldn't be the case, but it definitely is.
So there's a lot of
yeah. So I would say medical students wise, email the home@mardy.org.uk email, but also the info@mardy.org.uk email, which is our general sign up email, because there may be things that you can do. We might have side projects like written materials that we need making up and stuff that need a medical person to do that we can delegate to you. So just get in touch, we'll find a job for you.
And we've got a couple of other questions, but I think you have mainly answered a lot of them. One is, would medical students be Would medical students be able to come across and help you guys out either in a healthcare setting or an organisational role? Which you've said yes.
Harriet feedback.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
In touch. It'll be me. At Mardy2019 at gmail.com, and we can competent guys feel as medical students to be things individually. There is obviously a multi-team to feel and to do things individually too, to be of the most help. And we are seeing people every day. You need to just be able to, get through. But drop us an email or a message on Facebook, and we can just talk more. But yeah, definitely.
Lovely. And someone asked, you have to be legally registered to work in France. I don't know if she means that's you or somebody who came across.
Professional. You don't, because we're just doing frontline medical care. So as long as you need qualifications, obviously, and we background check everyone and make sure that whichever country you practice in, you are registered in. But you don't need, because we're not a French organisation, you don't need to be registered as a medic in France. We're working as a kind of primarily first aid, frontline medical care organisation, and we refer on anything that's out of our capacity.
Lovely. So do you three have anything more to add to that? Because I think we've got through all the questions. Anything else anyone needs to say?
I would just say, if you're sitting on the fence and you feel like and I'm speaking from personal experience here, if you're kind of watching this refugee crisis and thinking that you want to help but you don't know how and you don't think you'd be useful, you absolutely would. So speak to us. If you're not someone that you think, if you're not able to work with us, or it's not maybe appropriate, or there's a better place to have you working, we'll let you know. We'll pass you on to the right organisation, but you definitely can do something, and something in the right place with the right supervision is better than nothing and just sitting on the sidelines. So just get involved, you'll love it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've only volunteered in Calais myself, but it's one of them things
you'll be surprised.
So yeah, very rewarding, massively. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking.
You'll be surprised there's locally.
What was that, sorry?
Oh, I said you'll be surprised what there is locally as well that you can do. You've probably got a local organisation to you.
Yeah, there's a lot around the UK, definitely. Right, so we'll wrap up. Much appreciated. Really, really appreciate you coming along and talking today. We've obviously
technical issues.
you wouldn't know we'd had technical issues at all.
No.
But yeah, thank you for everyone on Facebook Live joining us and interacting, asking questions. The next Facebook Live interview for Donate for Refugees will be on Sunday, the 18th of October from 2 p.m. and that's UK time. That will be Lucy Phillip speaking to Josh Evans Jessera of Project Play, which is in northern France. And that'll be all.